In the deep, cedar-scented hush of the Thornwood, where the river bends into a question mark, and the moss grows thick as secrets, lived an owl named Bena. She was small for a great horned owl, with feathers the color of rain on slate, and eyes like 2 drops of molten amber. But her true oddity was not her size, it was her errand. Bena carried apologies. Not written on paper. Paper burns. Paper is forgotten. Bena carried apologies the way other birds carry twigs or mice, delicately, purposefully, as if they were the most fragile eggs in the world. She listened at windows, she perched on rain gutters, and when she heard a heart whisper, "I should not have said that," or "I was wrong," she flew. The first apology she ever delivered was to a baker's wife named Marin. Marin had shouted at her neighbor for letting his goats trample her marigolds. That night, tears dried salt on her cheeks. She opened her kitchen window and said to the dark, "I wish I hadn't called him a stone-headed fool." Bena, who had been sitting on the rosemary bush, blinked once. Then she flew to the neighbor's eaves and scratched gently at the shutter. When the old man opened it, she did not speak. She was an owl, after all. But she dropped a single marigold petal into his palm, and in that petal he felt the shape of Marin's regret. He understood. The next morning he rebuilt her flower bed with his own hands. Word spread. Not loudly. Thornwood was not a loud place. But soon, when a quarrel soured into silence, folks would leave their windows cracked at dusk. They'd set out a thimble of water, or a crust of bread, and they'd wait for the small gray owl with the patient eyes. Bena had rules. She never carried an apology that wasn't freely given. She never shamed someone into saying sorry. And she never ever delivered a sorry that meant, "Get over it." Those apologies tasted like ash in her beak, and she would drop them in the river. One autumn, a trouble came to Thornwood that was larger than a quarrel over goats or a crossword about firewood. A young man named Finn had accused the woodcarver old Silas of stealing his father's heirloom carving knife. Silas had been like a grandfather to Finn. The accusation was false. Finn had simply lost the knife in a hollow log while chasing a squirrel as a boy. But pride had locked his jaw, and Silas, whose heart was a thing of deep grain and slow burn, had not spoken to anyone in 3 weeks. The whole village felt the crack. The bakery grew quiet. Children stopped playing chase near the woodcarver's shed. Even the river seemed to run slower. Bena watched from the bell tower of the stone chapel. She saw Finn walk past Silas's house each morning, his hands in his pockets, his throat working around words that never came. She saw Silas whittle tiny owls, they were always owls, and set them on his windowsill to face the wall. On the 7th day of silence, Bena flew down and landed on Finn's windowsill. He was sitting on his bed, holding his father's knife, found at last in the hollow log, rusty but whole. "I know," Finn whispered to the owl. "I was a coward." Bena tilted her head. She did not reach out to take the apology. Not yet. Finn walked to Silas's house that evening. He knocked. No answer. He knocked again. The door opened a crack, and Silas's shadow stood in the gap. "I was wrong," Finn said. His voice broke on wrong like a branch under snow. "I was scared and stupid, and I hurt you. The knife was my fault. Every part of this was my fault, and I am sorry." Silas said nothing for a long moment. Then he opened the door all the way. In his palm was a small wooden owl, freshly carved. He held it out. "I made this for you," he said, "while I was angry. Carving helps me not throw things." Finn took the owl. He cried. Silas cried too, which surprised them both. And standing in the doorway, they laughed the shaky laugh of people who have just rebuilt a bridge they thought was burned. Bena watched from the rain barrel. She did not need to drop a petal or scratch at a shutter. The apology had traveled on its own 2 feet, as all true apologies must. Her part was simply to remind Finn that he could. That night, Bena flew back to her hollow in the great birch tree. She did not store apologies there, only feathers and the memory of moonlight. But if you listen carefully at dusk in Thornwood, you might still hear her soft hoo-hoo. Not a question exactly, more like a hand reaching out in the dark. And if you leave your window cracked and whisper the thing you truly regret, do not be surprised to find, come morning, a single marigold petal on your pillow. Because apologies, like owls, find their way home when the heart is willing to fly.